Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming LUFENIA Plus event, Lunar Tyrant Dark Bahamut Raid. The featured units are Papalymo from Final Fantasy XIV, Dark Knight Cecil from Final Fantasy IV, Rinoa from Final Fantasy VIII and lastly Locke from Final Fantasy VI. This raid event also marks the debut of Papalymo's LD. We will be fighting a Dark Bahamut which has 21 million HP. Throughout the fight, the Dark Bahamut can summon a Hope Manikin which has 3 million HP. The turn requirement is 85. The HP requirements is 20,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA Plus Orb conditions. The orb will appear whenever you see the following prompt using focus power for next attack. The prompt will be scripted to trigger at 79% and 49%. The boss will also activate the trigger when its recast gauge is filled to the max. When the trigger is activated, you will see the boss emitting a red aura and the countdown orb will appears. The orb will be cancelled when one of the following conditions are fulfilled. 1. The Dark Bahamut boss uses Megaflare Plus. 2. You trigger the Lost Focused Power condition. To trigger the second condition, you need to fulfill the orb uptick requirements. To uptick the orb, you need to deal at least 30,000 HP damage on second turn of one character's consecutive turns. Do note that AA doesn't count as consecutive turns. You need to have a unit with an instant turn ability. After the unit uses an instant turn ability, you will see a purple counter appearing next to the orb. You need to do 300k damage on the next turn to uptick the orb. Let's go through a few examples, so you have a rough idea on how the orb mechanic works. Papalymo have instant turn after using his LD, Xenoglossy Brave command, Foul HP command or his EX command. To use his special commands, he need to have Polygot stack to use them. Dark Knight Cecil have instant turn after using his LD where he can initiate a launch or use his EX. Sid Reigns can use his Heavenly Strike HP command, following by initiating a launch on his second turn. Noel can use Fear Siphon ++ to break the boss and use his EX on the next turn. Machina can use his LD and a skill on his next turn. Locke can use his Mug, Thief Bracer, followed by a LD skill or EX. He can also gain instant turn upon using HP, Miracle Shoes. Other than the examples that I have mentioned, you can also consider using Tefat, Ursula, Jet, Ace, Titus, Zidane, Cloud of Darkness or Lightning. If you have been playing this game for a while, you should have amassed a big roster with units that have instant turns. There are definitely a lot more units that can uptick the orb. Also, any unit with their burst phase can also uptick the orb as well. Just make sure you deal 300k damage on the second consecutive turn. There is a purple counter next to the orb to indicate whether you are on the second consecutive turn. I will discuss more on this in the subsequent slides. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Jack, Titus. As the boss has a huge amount of HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Gabrinth, Ignis, Maria, Lily-Set, and Fran are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Sid and Kamari are also viable. A lot of the recent released LD units have accompanied HP damage auras on their LDCA. The Dark Bahamut boss will have massive Brave gains when it is readying to use Megaflare. Thus freezing the Brave is a very viable option to handle this fight mechanic. Calls that can stop Brave gains are Setzer, Kater and Arsila. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Garnet, Horum, Setzer, Agrias, Kate Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Lena, Lyud, and Sarah. A green BT plus Garnet will definitely help to open up a lot of team comp options. As the boss can gain tremendous amounts of Brave, and if you are playing the non-delay game, damage mitigation is high recommended. Options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Orin, Zack, Nine and Beatrix. The orb requires you to deal 300k damage on the second turn of the consecutive turns. Here is a list of the damage dealers that have instant turns that you can consider. They are Locke, Papalymo, Dark Knight Cecil, Zell, Tifa, Jet, Shadow, Ace, Lightning, Ursula, Cloud of Darkness, Vivi, Sid Reigns, Noelle, Machina, Queen, Kater, Ida, Titus and Zidane. The boss isn't immune to delays or launch. You can consider the following options to enable boss no turns: Quistis, Cypher, Sabin, and Sync for delays. Bring Selfie, Kais, or Afma if you are bringing a launch-oriented team comp. The infamous Sidma combo will also works for the fight. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The LUFENIA aura and stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight, 79% HP threshold and the 49% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, Dark Bahamut will summon Hope Manikin to the battlefield. The Hope Manikin provides buff support to the Bahamut boss, which will reduce Brave damage by 50%. Other than that, as long as you keep it broken, it won't be too dangerous. It will enter into the gathering power in the preparation for the next attack at the 79% and 49%. The Dark Bahamut boss will also get in this stance whenever its recast gauge is maxed. Once that stance is triggered, the LUFENIA orb will also appears. You need to uptick the orb to cause Bahamut to lose concentration, otherwise it will use Megaflare plus. If you break the stance, it will use Megaflare. I will discuss more on the orb trigger mechanics in the subsequent slides. Bahamut's key attack is the Megaflare. It can also use counter Megaflare once you exit out of the summon. So, avoid using your summon unless you can confirm that you will kill the Bahamut. Overall, this isn't really a tough fight. With recent global first BT Garnet supporting, the fight will probably be over even you could pay any attention to the boss mechanics. Just beware of the pointers that I have highlighted, and this fight shouldn't be too difficult to handle. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, Brave damage, and Brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight, 79% HP threshold and 49% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300%. The maximum Brave damage reduction auras is 90%. The maximum Brave gain reduction auras are 70%. To handle against the Brave reduction auras, you can use Brave damage up calls like Jack, Sephiroth, or bring a support that have Brave damage up like Lena. Alternatively, you can also use the Enchant and Imperil strategy to hit the enemies for elemental weakness damage. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. The fight revolves heavily on how to handle the LUFENIA orb trigger cycle. The HP thresholds for the trigger are at the 79% and 49%. The boss will activate this trigger whenever its recast gauge is maxed. When the condition is triggered, you will see a prompt, gathering power in preparation for the next attack. The boss will fill its recast gauge to max and gains a red aura. The turns of Bahamut will also become framed where it becomes immune to delay, include breaks, and turn deletions. It will also gain a post-turn Brave regen of 200% of its initial Brave. Make sure that you have ample character turns before the boss turn when trigger the threshold. The orb will appear at the counter of 10. If you have a character that uses an instant ability, you will see a purple counter appear next to the orb. On turn 2, you need to deal 300k damage to uptick the orb. The example on the screen is that the player has Ursula use S2, an instant turn ability, then uses her special HP plus attack to meet the 300k requirements. Once you met the condition, the orb will be diffused. The red aura and the frame turns will also be removed. If you are unable to fulfill the conditions, Bahamut will use Megaflare Plus, which will inflict break and follow up with an AoE Brave plus HP. The red aura, LUFENIA Orb, and frame turns will be removed upon Bahamut using Megaflare Plus. As Megaflare Plus have break infliction, it is best that you avoid triggering it. Throughout the fight, Bahamut will constantly summon and replaces the Hope Manikin. The triggers for the summoning are turn 0, 79%, 49% and 29%. The Hope Manikin generally only provide brave damage reduction buffs for the Bahamut. Shell will reduce magic brave attacks by 50% while Protect will reduce physical brave attacks by 50%. Other than that, it is actually harmless as long as you keep its brave in check. When the LUFENIA Orb cycle activated, Bahamut will summon and replace the existing Hope Manikin with a new Hope Manikin. Do note that you don't need to kill off the Hope Manikin to end the fight. The Dark Bahamut has 4 types of Megaflare. I will briefly go through about the 4 variants. The default recast ability is Megaflare, which is an AoE HP attack. While the red aura and LUFENIA Plus Orb is active, it will use Megaflare Plus. Megaflare Plus is a recover from break, AoE Brave plus HP. It will also inflict break on all characters. Upon using it, Bahamut will diffuse the orb and remove the properties that it gains from the charging phase. Megaflare Plus is the countdown ability. If you see that attack, it is an instant party wipe and game over for your run. Upon exiting out from the summon phase, Dark Bahamut will use counter Megaflare, where it will inflict break on all targets followed by a guaranteed hit, AoE Brave plus HP attack. After the attack is used, Dark Bahamut will instantly follow up with counter cure, where it will heal itself 5 million HP. So when you want to use your summon phase, make sure you are able to kill it while in the summon phase. Here is the last slide for my boss guide presentation. Other than watching out for the Megaflare variants, do keep in mind of the following pointers that I am about to mention. 1. When the orb is activated, always attempt to fulfill the orb condition at all costs so you won't face the stronger variant of Megaflare. 2. Bahamut don't have any debuff cleansing attacks. So you can freeze the brave gains with the brave control debuffs like Setzer's Freeze Joker or Cater's Freeze debuff. 3. The basic Megaflare is quite harmless as long as you don't get broken by it. Avoid breaks and you should be fine. 4. Don't use your summon phase unless you can confirm that you are able to kill while in the summon phase. I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.